Scotland, New Zealand. Two relatively small nations by land size and population, both absolutely naturally stunning and yet so far away from one another. You know what's crazy? Scotland is literally a couple of hours drive from where I live, yet I've only been there once in my life for one day. New Zealand, however, is on the other side of the world and takes well over a day of travelling to get there, and I've spent 2 months of my life there. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the Geography Bible. I'm Sam, I'll be narrating the video today. In this video, we will be comparing the land of the Scots versus the land of the Kiwis. In some regards, they are extremely similar, and in others, they couldn't be any more different. So in this video, we will compare the two by looking at their key demographics, geography, economies, and of course, along the way, we will throw in some interesting facts and statistics. Now, before we kick off this video, remember to give the video a cheeky like and subscribe if you haven't already. We've got plenty more content to come and it's completely free. And without further ado, let's get into this video by looking at their geographical positions on Earth. So Scotland is a country that is part of the United Kingdom, covering the northern third of the island of Great Britain. Mainland Scotland has a 96-mile border with England. Its capital city is the beautiful Edinburgh. New Zealand is an island country in the southwestern Pacific Ocean. It consists of two main landmasses, the North Island and of course the South Island, and more than 700 smaller islands, believe it or not. Its capital city is also beautiful, that would be Wellington, not Auckland, which it is commonly mistaken for. Alright, so now let's dive into some key demographics for both of these countries, starting off with their population density, and most populous city. So Scotland has a population of around 5.5 million compared to New Zealand's roughly 4.9 million, so very similar indeed. New Zealand has around 18.2 people per kilometre squared compared to Scotland's 65, meaning that New Zealand is a hell of a lot more sparsely populated than Scotland. However, to put this in perspective, this makes Scotland around the 115th most densely populated country in the world, and New Zealand the 166th, so they are both definitely sparsely populated. Glasgow, Scotland's cultural hub, is its most populated city with around 612,000 residents. Auckland, New Zealand's most populated and populous city, has a population of around 1.6 million, meaning that it has around 1 million more people than Scotland's most populated city. That means nearly a third of New Zealand's population lives in Auckland, compared to just 10% of Scotland living in Glasgow. Alright, so now let's take a look at their average life expectancy and average age. So New Zealand's life expectancy sits at an impressive just under 83 years, making them the 19th highest in the world. Scotland's life expectancy is a little lower at 79 years, the lowest out of all the UK countries. The gap in life expectancy between the most and least deprived areas was 13.3 years for males and 10 years for females. The average age for a Kiwi is 37.3 years and the average age of a Scot is 41.5, so definitely a win for New Zealand in this one. Alright, so now let's move on to their geography. From the naked eye, it could be said that these two countries are very similar in terms of terrain and landscapes. They offer some of the most picturesque and beautiful places our planet has to offer. Raw green hills and mountains and lakes as far as the eye can see. So now let's compare them. Starting off with their total land size. So New Zealand comes in at around 268,000 kilometres squared compared to Scotland's 78,000 kilometres squared, meaning that New Zealand is roughly 3.4 times larger than Scotland. Let's jump over to the truesize.com where we can compare the two countries side by side in a non-distorted view. Now, this website does not allow me to just drag Scotland, so we will ignore the rest of the UK. So to no surprise, New Zealand completely dwarfs Scotland. At 1,345 metres, Ben Nevis is Scotland's highest mountain. To my surprise, New Zealand laughs in the face of Ben Nevis. Its highest mountain is Mount Cook at a very impressive 3,724 metres, making it about 2.7 times taller than Ben Nevis. When it comes to coastline, it's another win for New Zealand, to no one's surprise whatsoever. New Zealand is larger and an island nation. It has around 15,000 kilometres of coastline, compared to Scotland's 6,160 kilometres. Both of these countries have some absolutely stunning beaches. Yes, that's right, Scotland has some incredible pristine beaches, especially on its west coast, although probably not the best beaches for sunbathing for most of the year. Speaking of sunbathing, let's now compare their temperature, climates and weather patterns. So Scotland is generally cold and wet. Its mean yearly temperature is around 8 degrees Celsius. New Zealand is slightly warmer overall. Its mean annual temperature ranges from around 10 degrees in the south to 16 degrees in the north of the island. Most areas of New Zealand have between 600 and 1,600 millimeters of rainfall spread throughout the year, with a dry period during the summer. Sunshine hours are relatively high in areas that are sheltered from the west, and most of New Zealand would have at least 2,000 hours annually. The wettest parts of Scotland experience an average of 250 days of rain per year, whereas the driest parts only experience an average of about 150. The average number of days with snow falling in Scotland ranges from 15 to 20 days, whereas on the peaks and mountains, the average number of days of snowfall is more like 100 days. The coldest part of Scotland are in the higher areas, with an average of only 1,100 hours of sun per year. Personally, when it comes to climate, I'd give the win here to New Zealand. However, it must be noted that New Zealand does experience serious major earthquakes, which pose a huge risk to structures and life, whereas Scotland does not. Its main natural disaster potential is usually flooding and some storms. 18.5% of Scotland is forest compared to New Zealand, which has 38% of its land covered in forest. New Zealand is home to just 3 World UNESCO Heritage Sites compared to Scotland's 6, meaning that Scotland has double the amount of New Zealand. Scotland's longest river is the Tay at 190 kilometres long, which has nothing on New Zealand's longest, the Waikato River in the North Island, which stretches 425 kilometres. Alright, so now let's move on to some facts about their economy and wealth, as well as some interesting financial statistics, starting off with their GDP sizes. Okay, so this one is nuts. Their economies are pretty much neck and neck, both at around 205 billion US dollars, which makes them both around the 50th highest in the world. Scotland's GDP per capita is around 37,500 US dollars compared to New Zealand's 38,000, again super close. As of May 2021, Scotland has an unemployment rate of 4.3% compared to New Zealand's 4.7. With the pandemic ripping through the tourism and hospitality industry, it's fair to say that both of these nations have been hit hard. Hopefully they will recover in the coming year. Scotland's top 5 exports are petroleum at around £11 billion, beverages, the majority of course coming from whiskey at around £4 billion, power generating machinery and equipment at around £2 billion, general industry machinery again about £1 billion, and finally fish at around £1 billion. New Zealand's top 5 exports are dairy, eggs and honey at around $10 billion, meat at about $5 billion, wood at $3 billion, fruits and nuts at $2.5 billion, and finally cereal and milk at $1.6 billion. The average salary in Scotland is around £25,600 and the average house price across the country is just £164,000, compared to New Zealand's average salary at $53,000 and the average house setting you back just under $600,000, meaning that the income to house price ratio is an easy win for the Scots. The cost of living in New Zealand is considerably more than in Scotland. Of course, Kiwis are paid more, so it does balance it out slightly. Notably, beer is expensive in New Zealand, costing around 10 New Zealand dollars per bottle of beer in an establishment. Having 10 of those and you've already spent $100 on a night out before factoring in transport and your food. At $4.70 and $4.80, Scotland and New Zealand respectively have quite expensive Big Macs in comparison to other nations. The Big Mac Index is a decent way of determining if a country has high living costs or not. Alright, so now let's move on to the next section, infrastructure. Starting off by looking at how much roadways, railways and airports these two countries have. So Scotland has around 55,000 kilometres of roads, 2,800 kilometres of railway and just 5 main international airports. New Zealand has around 83,000 kilometres of road, 4,400 kilometres of railway, and just like Scotland, 5 main international airports. Both of these countries have some of the most beautiful, picturesque train journeys in the world. A very similar type of landscape indeed. At 2,467 metres, Scotland's longest bridge, the Forth Bridge, is considerably longer than New Zealand's longest, the Raikaya Bridge, which is 1,756 metres long. The tallest building in Scotland is the Glasgow Tower, standing at 127 metres. It is a freestanding landmark observation tower located on the south bank of the River Clyde in Glasgow. This building is a dwarf in comparison to New Zealand's tallest, the Sky Tower of Auckland, which stands at an impressive 328 metres tall, which actually makes it the tallest building in Oceania and actually the tallest freestanding structure in the Southern Hemisphere. And now to end the video, let's have some fun fire facts about both of these countries, starting off with the land of the Scots. So, the official animal of Scotland is the unicorn. The highest proportion of redheads are in Scotland. The Scots invented golf, with St Andrews considered as the home of golf. The shortest commercial flight in the world is in Scotland. The journey from Westray to Papa Westray in Orkney is approximately 1.5 miles long and takes just 47 seconds. The deepest loch in Scotland is not Loch Ness, it is Loch Morar, which reaches 1,077 feet down and is ranked the 17th deepest lake in the world. And now for New Zealand. New Zealand has more sheep than people. Dunedin has the steepest road in the world. It has the most southerly capital in the world. It was the last country in the world to be inhabited by humans, and the longest place name in any English-speaking country in the world is in New Zealand. So there we have it. Now it's your turn. Let us know in the comments below which one you'd rather live in and which one you'd rather just visit. And while you are there, let us know which city or countries we should do next. I for sure would live in New Zealand and just visit Scotland. As Scotland is close to me, I'd much prefer emigrating across to the land of the Kiwis. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video or learned something new, consider dropping a like. And if you love this sort of content and learning about countries from around the world, consider subscribing. It is completely free. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you very soon in the next video. Have a good one.